I'm Theron Q Ramacharaka. I'm surprised that nobody has yet asked me to say something about sex. I was recently asked to say something about pornography, so I did. Excuse me. If I'm going to talk about sex, I'm going to go ahead and eat while I talk about it. I don't know why. It just seems fitting. Well, I'm eating some brown rice, by the way, with chopsticks. I really don't like the idea of stabbing my food. I don't know. Or mixing what I eat and the flesh of my mouth, my lips and my tongue with metal if I don't have to. I don't know. It's just a personal thing. I don't know. Bamboo chopsticks just seem to be a little bit more along the lines of something natural. Metals are natural too, but they've kind of been more processed than a couple of whittled down pieces of bamboo. Anyway, all right, sex. A somewhat esoteric view perhaps would be requested. Well, that's a deep subject. Perhaps the best way into that one is to talk about Tantra Yoga. But I'm not going to talk about that much. I will point out that there is a misunderstanding about the word Tantra and Tantra Yoga. The misunderstanding takes it that Tantra Yoga is somehow a yogic discipline that has everything, that's all about sex. The yoga of sex. Well, that's not correct. The Tantra system of yoga really is a most complete system of yoga. It involves all the rest. And it does not shy away at all from sex. Now, Kriya Yoga, certain sub-paths of Kriya Yoga, same thing. But in large, if you take a look at the major categories of yoga, there's not a lot about sex involved. Tantra Yoga, proper, involves all aspects of yoga and includes sex. And it is true that sex, when practiced in accordance with such a system of attainment, spiritual attainment, fits right in with such a path, part of it. If you have a sex partner, that is. It doesn't mean you have to go out and find one if you don't have one. In other words, sex isn't required. That's the point I'm going to get at here in this video. Sex is never required. There's only one thing that sex is required for. And aside from it, sex is not a requirement in life. Sex is required for procreation of the species. As a matter of fact, apparently, according to the transhumanist agenda thing going on, and genetic playing God thing going on in the world, sex isn't even required for that. But if we want to stay natural about affairs, sex is required for procreation of the species, regeneration of the species, all right? That's what it's required for. Other than that, there is no requirement. The idea that you gotta have sex in your life, you gotta have it. You know, you gotta have sex is a lie. It's a lie. Anybody who says, I can't go without it, is out of control. I'm sorry, man. I'm just putting it out there straightforwardly. I'm not pulling punches here. I'm just being straightforward about the facts of the matter. Nobody is going to die from not having sex. This is not how things work. Oh, there will probably be some poor soul out here somewhere, some poor guy who will die from it and prove me wrong. But I'm having trouble imagining that. I've never heard of it. There may be some case somewhere on the planet, or maybe it would be some other planet. I don't know. One case that would prove it wrong, or it might appear to, because of the diagnosis, you know, the cause of death, lack of sex. It's just a little absurd, though, isn't it? Now, the person who says, I can't go without it. I can't go for more than, I don't know. I mean, I can hold out for a month, maybe 2. 3? No! I gotta have sex! Well, what's going to happen if they don't? And furthermore, how are they going about getting it all the time? Whenever they so desire. I've been I've been alive for a while. I don't know if I look like it, but I'm in my upper 50s, folks. I've been around the block. I've been around the town. I've been around the country. I've been around. I've watched. I've observed. I've participated. I've studied. I've inquired over the years into many matters. I know how it's done. Some of the methods are a little bit, I don't know, a little shady. Just to accomplish this thing called meeting the requirement for sex. It's called the game, you know. Ethics kind of flies out the window. It's almost like business. The way business is taken to be these days. Well, it's just business. Ethics kind of flies out the window when it's business. Same with when it's sex. You know, it's the wild thing. In many ways. But back to the point. What's really going to happen to somebody who says, I can't go without it, I can't go without it, I can't go without it? What's going to happen? Okay, they may become depressed. Why would they become depressed? Come on, really? Could it perhaps, for one thing, have something to do with their false ego getting punctured? This idea that Everybody else is having fun and I'm not. Or maybe it's just that their habit of sex is being violated, infringed upon, not being able to be carried out. So they feel that something that they are very accustomed to, that's very kind of like an instinctual thing that really has to do with propagation of the species, is getting interrupted, and therefore something's wrong. The universe is working against me here, man. I'm not getting laid. That could be depressing. And of course, we would like to then point to the depression as the proof that we have to have sex. Lack of sex will lead to depression. But that's not necessarily the case. That's only the case if we think we have to have sex. It's kind of like a circle of loop to get stuck in there. You know, I have to have sex because if I don't, I'll get depressed. Now, if I'm not having sex and I get depressed, that just proves it. But depression is not a necessary consequence of not having sex. Sex is not required to be alive. It's required to bring a new life into the world. But it's not required for somebody already alive to remain alive. Now, I've heard that a good sex life prolongs a person's life. Why? I'm not sure that's been adequately answered. I can imagine that it would do that if the person under study is somebody who would get depressed and develop anxiety disorder or loneliness syndrome due to lack of sex. Yeah, those things could shorten life. They normally do. But lack of sex isn't the only thing that can cause those. And lack of sex doesn't necessarily have to cause those. It depends on your belief system about sex with respect to whether a lack of it is going to bring on those things. Let me give you an example of all this. As a teenager, I had an enormously high sex drive. I was not sexually abused. I was not, sexual activity was not promoted to me as a child in any way. Now, what I have heard about people, kids, who are sexually charged, to whom sex was highly promoted as a child, in fact, they were introduced to it at a very early age, kind of become overdriven with sex. They become sexually active very early and tend to stay like that for a long time in life. In fact, they're overdriven sexually. I felt like that, but I had no such causes in my life, causes for it. I was very sexually overcharged. And it felt to me like I needed to have sex constantly. I didn't. Things got in the way of that, and it screwed my head all up. It really screwed my head all up. As a teenager, a young man, I wasn't very socially skilled, in fact, in getting laid at every turn. And by at every turn, I mean at every turn. Like I said, I felt like I should be having sex. I was so sexually driven that I felt like That's all I should be doing all day long, every day. But that wasn't happening. So I felt all out of whack. Somehow, somewhere, deep inside, I had this gut feeling as well as an intellectual understanding, I think, that sex is not really necessary, but me not having it screwed me all up. So I know what it's like to propose, to pronounce, I've got to have sex, man. I can't go without it. And yet, I know what it's like to go without it for a long time. It happened to me, regardless of my efforts. It was uncanny. I would sometimes try, one way or another, to get laid nearly every day. And yet, I had a couple instances earlier in life, up to 3 years straight, no result occurred. You know, it was uncanny. People would say, hey man, you're good looking, you're intelligent, you're funny. I don't believe you. I don't even believe you. You have trouble getting laid. Whenever you feel like you could have any woman in the world. You have a room full of women, you could have anyone you want. And I look at this person who's telling me that and say, are you nuts? Would you please explain to me how that's done? Because that's not my experience. And they would say, oh, come on. Good grief. You're making this up. I even had women turn me down at many levels, like turn me down for sex, or turn me down to go out with me, turn me down to be my girlfriend, on the grounds that they believed that I could have any woman that I want. Why would I want them? That became a reason why. One of many reasons why I was finding it a little difficult. That's an absurd thing. Now you line that up with a lot of other such types of things, kinds of things, and it added up to, sometimes I would go for long periods, completely out of my mind with frustration. Wanting my life to end because of that. Just that. Talk about shortened lifespan. Well, I eventually overcame all these difficulties. And then I came to realize that my old original idea that it's not really required in life was able to grow. Once I overcame the difficulties associated with, having sex whenever I would like. I never arrived at the point where I could, just be constantly having sex all day long and then carried it out. No, but I overcame most of the barriers that would get in the way of such a thing if I actually wanted to pursue that heavily with total attention and emphasis. Work it out so that I was always having an orgy going on, constantly, all the time. I knew that I could get there if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. Not anymore. Anyway, not anymore. Plus, all the mind games involved, the manipulation, come on, let's face it. To get laid a lot, for many people, does require a little bit of encroaching one's will upon somebody else on the grounds that, hey, everybody likes sex, so, it doesn't really matter, man. It's kind of like saying, hey, it's just business. It's nothing personal. It's not like you're dealing with, family matters or, dealing with a friend or an everyday social interaction. We're dealing with business here. So, kind of like knock it off with the ethics talk. Same kind of thing. Well, I don't draw such lines. Encroaching one's will upon somebody else is encroaching one's will upon somebody else no matter what you're doing. No matter what line of life you're talking about. No matter what aspect of life you're talking about. No matter what line of business you're talking about. No matter what. The mind games. I'm sick. I was sick of them from the start. The sexual politics. The games that have to be played in our society to work this all out. Or none have to be played at all. You're just very straightforward and blunt about it. Hey, do you want to, do whatever? And the answer may be yes. Well, then you get your clothes off and you go to work. There's that too. But then, there's another thing that kicks in, which I've noticed quite a lot. Sex becomes a habit then. It just becomes a habit. Something you have to have because you have to have it. Because it's a habit. And then we're a slave to the habit. I don't want to be a slave to anything. Especially not some instinctual urge that has to do with the procreation, the regeneration of the species, of procreation. I don't want to be a slave to something that is down at that, instinctual level of being. I feel that I'm a little bit higher than that. At least a little. I would be like being a slave to every little bit of appetite that has to do with food that comes along, trotting along in the day in my mind. Well, I'd be a 500-pound slob. But I'm not. People have told me that on my YouTube videos, my face looks pretty good. Which I think is a good thing if I'm going to be making videos in which my face is seen. But if I was a slave to my appetites, to my basic appetites, my face would be like this. Probably wouldn't be very good to look at all. Being a slave to a sexual habit, not much different. And then how much fun is it really? Once it becomes an everyday thing. And besides, another point is, how well does it work? You get into the habit, or even if you're not into the habit, how well does it work? You have an orgasm, you want another one. I used to say that to sexual partners. Like, when I was married, I would say it to my wife. Okay, we had sex. I want to do it again. Let's do it again. Shortly afterwards, let's do it again. Or can't wait to do that again later today. And if I was told we would do it again later today and then that didn't happen, I'd feel a little bit left out. I'd feel a little snubbed. Like I've been cheated. But my main point here is, you do it, then you want to do it again. So how well did it work the first time? I guess not very well, because it needed to be repeated almost right away. I mean, you would think that if you take your car to the shop to get it repaired, you don't need to do that very soon again. If you got it home and found that you needed to take it right back and get it all repaired all over again, you got the oil changed, right? You got a lube job. And as you're driving out of the shop where you got your lube job, you suddenly realize you got to turn right around and go back in for another lube job I guess the first one didn't work. Well, the same with the sexual lube job. If as soon as you get over having, as a guy, get, passed out for a little while, you wake up, woo, you're going to do that again. I guess it didn't work. All right, so I have arrived at a point in my life where I no longer really care about sex. Do I still have a physiological thing going on that's called, sexual energy? Yeah. Yeah. Do I worry much about it? No. Do I want to go through the mind games? No. Do I want to go through relationship difficulties? Just, from a male point of view here, from a lower chakra oriented sexual thing in life, do I, just to have that, do I want to go through relationship difficulties? No. Would I like to be in a relationship with a woman for other reasons? Yeah. Is it happening at the moment? No. Am I worried about it? No. Do I feel like I should go find a woman because at least I can have sex now and then? No. Does it bother me that I am not having sex in my life? No. Do I seek it? No. Am I concerned about that? No. Am I happy without it? Yes. Do I feel like I'm missing out on something? No. I've done it. Do I feel like I'm losing years off my life because of this? No. Am I in despair over it? No. Is my false ego being somehow punctured? No. Is sex required? No. Are there women who want to have sex with me? Are they making it known to me? Yes. Am I saying, okay, sure, come on? No. Do I feel okay? Yeah. Do I walk around thinking about sex? Not much. Rarely ever. Am I hounded by a strong sex drive? No. Do I give it much thought? No. What about you? I'm just enjoying my brown rice with chopsticks. The only thought I gave sex here during this time was make this video. Hasn't made me feel like doing anything sexual. I'm Theron Q Ramacharaka. Have a good day.